Good morning, Father Principal, Father Vice Principal, our distinguished speaker, Mr. Richard Lobo, our esteemed moderator, Mr. Amitabh Ray, members of the advisory committee, faculty members, and all the students of St. Xavier's College, Autonomous, Kolkata. We welcome you to Xavier's Management Society's first calendar year event, X-Genesis 2023. X-Genesis 3-day simulation designed specifically for the first years to introduce them to the management world, guide them through the learning process, and to help them enter a college journey full of learning and memories. X-Genesis offers them the ideal chance to demonstrate their abilities, put their expertise to the test, and establish their caliber in addition to competition and discipline. The rounds assess students' business savvy and provide knowledge of skills necessary in today's corporate environment, like time management, teamwork, communication, and problem solving. Now, I would like to call upon our distinguished speaker, Mr. Richard Lobo. Mr. Richard Lobo is the head of the people function at Infosys, tasked with cultivating a talent rich environment essential for the company's future success. With a continuous association since 2000, he has championed innovative people practices, propelling Infosys forward. His leadership has driven pivotal business transformations, particularly through the growth phase, while currently integrating technology and analytics into HR functions. As a director on the board of Infosys Consulting and Infosys China, he demonstrates diverse experience encompassing sales, engineering, and material roles. Mr. Richard's educational background includes mechanical engineering and a management postgraduate diploma. A recognized author and an industrial speaker, he also advises academia on business and HR trends. Now, I would like to call upon our distinguished moderator for the day, Mr. Amitabh Ray. With more than 30 years of corporate leadership, Amitabh Ray is a pragmatic driver of growth and innovation, adept at strategic vision, team building, and execution. His communication prowess spans boardrooms to trenches. As a telecom, tech, and professional services global executive, he is deeply committed to business execution and people development. With roles like MD at Ericsson, IBM's global delivery head, and PwC consulting partner, he possesses extensive global experience navigating transformation in organizations with over a century of history. Honored as a most promising business leader of Asia 2021, the Economic Times, and a top 100 people manager 2022 Forbes India, he's dedicated to uplifting others. His career reflects creating opportunity in adversity and aligning personal and organizational goals. Thank you, Mr. Richard Lobo and Mr. Amitabh Ray, for gracing our event with your esteemed presence. We are extremely glad to have you here with us. I'm sure the I'm sure that today's discussion and your insights on navigating your career journey lesson from the top will be a motivation and enriching experience for our audience. Without further ado, now I would like to hand over the session to you, sir.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Amitabh, you want to say something, or should I straight away start?
No,
Yeah, firstly, thanks to Xavier's for giving us the opportunity to come and share thoughts. Richard, as you already heard, is a prominent name in people function in country and abroad, and the topic is also very important. That in an era where change is the only constant, as we know, predicting one's career trajectory seems like being into a foggy maze. If you're looking, peering into a foggy maze. So we all say that our career is a journey, right? And depending on the course, you have to shift gear, pause for a break, and enjoy the landscape around the highway, or even change the course at times. It's, to me, sounds almost poetic. Of course, it is important to have a map, in front of all of us that only to guide us to forge ahead. In real life, though, the technology landscape through which we navigate our careers are constantly changing. We know the metaphors of the past do not hold any true any longer. And the velocity of technology is exponential, and that needs us to be alert to navigate through all these changes. We need to be agile enough to adapt and stay relevant in every scenario. So today we are fortunate to have Mr. Richard Lobo here sharing some of his experience and his take on the career path of tomorrow's executives and employees. So without any further delay, I would like to hand it over, Richard, and maybe I'm sure that we'll have a very engaging conversation, and there will be a Q&A after Richard's talk. And I encourage all of you to ask the question and get it answered from Richard himself. Over to you, Richard.
So Amitabh, thank you, and a special thanks to everybody at Xavier's for inviting me. So when I first saw the invite, I think I felt that I must do this session because the main reason was it is from a group of students, and I usually try to make myself available because the idea is that you should benefit from whatever little I have to share. So to get the maximum benefit out of the session, I request you to keep sending your questions to the chat one. I'm going to keep my opening comments very brief. The idea is to answer more of what you want to know rather than only speak on what I might have in mind. And as we have better question and as we interact more, I think the conversation will get more useful and more richer. So please keep it that way. So I'll start with a few opening comments and then I will pause. The first perspective I wanted to share with all of you is the what I call as the shifts in the world of work. And it's a very broad kind of a view. But what I want you to think is that we are seeing several shifts in the way work is being done. And as you are just entering your college phase in your life, some of these shifts will be very important for you, much more than they are for me or for Amitabh. The first one is every enterprise or every company is becoming a technology company. So whether you are manufacturing bikes, or whether you are into the IT sector, or whether you are into the delivery of newspapers, or whether you're into any other activity, including medicine, the impact of technology is all around. So for example, much of the surgeries which are very precision controlled, which were done by doctors, are now slowly being taken over by robots. The news analysis which you get fed in is happening automated to technology. The impact of this is, the idea is, I'm not here to sell technology to you. The idea is that this has an impact of what you will do when you get into the workforce. So the kind of work you do or the kind of job you do will be different from what somebody who passed from your college, say 10 years back, would have done. So the impact of technology on what we do is going to be very pronounced. And that's the first idea I want you to keep in mind when you plan as to what you want to do beyond college and beyond your studies. The second important aspect is across the world, and this is not an India-specific issue, we are seeing skill shortages. Skill shortages in the sense that what we learned, each one of us learned formally in college, is getting outdated very quickly. So whether you're an engineer or a chartered accountant or a financial analyst or whatever it is, or even a doctor, what the formal education system has taught you gets outdated quickly. And that leads to skill shortages because the skills needed do not keep pace with what the education system delivers. So this is the second point which I want you to keep in mind. The third is that there is a large demographic shift across countries. And some of you might have read about this, but the point is that the age group, which is the working age group, is now actually available in only some countries. Fortunately, India is one of those. China was a large source. And Africa will be another large source of manpower of the working age. And many of the countries which you can target as so-called developed countries or bracket them as developed countries are going to see a shortage of working age population. So they'll have more older population, less younger population. So this would lead to a lot of opportunities for the youth in countries which have a surplus in terms of employable population. So this is the third point which you need to keep in mind. And finally, the fourth one is that our planet is changing very quickly. For those of you who are familiar with the eras in terms of how anthropologists label, we are actually moving from an age which was known as Holocene to what is known as Anthropocene. And forget all the technical part, but it means that the impact of human beings on the planet is impacting all of us. And it's a contradictory statement, but our impact, the footprint that humans have left on the planet, is making life difficult for humans itself. So, and you could see much of what is happening, the heat waves which are happening over Europe and America, the wildfires, the unplanned rains which are happening in our country in some places and not in others, are all signals that the planet is changing. And each of us have a very pronounced impact on that change which is happening, because we can't really ignore it anymore. It has reached a stage that each one of us have to give attention to it. In combination, these four trends, the prevalence of technology in enterprises, the skill shortages, the demographic shifts, and the change in the way the planet is functioning, will mean that each of you, as you get to the workforce, will have to look at innovations, and I'm not putting them as problems, I'm putting them as areas where you need to focus and use your intelligence, your capability of thinking of new things, your capability of bringing in change to make things better for others. So there's a period of great opportunity, and each one of you is uniquely placed to make a difference in how things go on in the future. And how do you do that? So I'm moving to the next phase of my opening comments. So I've placed before you the trends. So how do you do that? A few things to keep in mind. The first is what I call as the concept of lifelong learning. So don't assume that learning will stop when you finish whatever you have planned as your formal studies. Learning is continuous, learning is lifelong, and we can never afford to give up on learning. So how you do learning really doesn't matter whether you use method A versus method B, or you continue to study, you have your own system, it doesn't matter. But the fact remains that you have to be lifelong learners to take advantage of the opportunities which are available. The second is the whole aspect of the world getting integrated as a network. And more than any time else in our planet, I think the connectiveness, the ability to network with others of similar thought and get action done very quickly, technology has made that possible. And don't forget the networks you build both in college, outside college, and that you can use for your advantage and for making change. The third is, don't forget yourself. Managing oneself is very important, whether you're in college or beyond college. And I have seen from personal experience the impact when people neglect their own wellness, their own health, their family time. It all has an impact on how well you can perform at work. So don't forget that piece of your life, because once you finish college, it's very easy to forget some of these things. So don't forget that. The fourth is, of course, I know this may not necessarily be taken well, but the fact that hard work trumps everything else. Because I have not seen anybody in the corporate world being successful without putting in a lot of hard work. They may not necessarily agree to it. The same goes for college. I have also not seen, though some of you might disagree, I've also not seen anybody doing well in college without hard work. They may not also admit that they put in hard work. So that fact continues beyond college. And the last is the focus on ethics and values. And you're in a great institute. St. Xavier's has an outstanding reputation, along with other Jesuit institutions, of inculcating values from a very young age. And I think you should not forget some of the values which are spoken about, because these are not empty statements. As the world gets more complex, there is a great demand for personal reputation. And I think personal reputation can't be built overnight. Personal reputation is built over a long period of time by doing the right things and not the wrong things. So don't forget that. And I think you should do credit for the institute you are in by focusing on some of these things which are going to be important. In conclusion, I think I go back to the fact that Steve Jobs was very fond of saying, and I think that's very true, is that whatever you see around you has been created by someone who's no better than you. So whatever you see around you has been created just by ordinary people. So you yourself could do extraordinary things. It doesn't require any special gifts. It requires focus and requires dedication. And so everything you see around has been done by somebody who's no better than each one of us. So don't forget that. So you on your own can bring about change. You can do wonderful things. And I really hope you do that. So continue to be curious, question things. Don't accept what you see around you. Add value to whatever comes across your way. And the most important part, the last comment I have is have fun. Life is too short to not to have fun. So have fun, enjoy what you do with your friends and colleagues, and wish you all the best. And so I will stop with these opening comments, and we have a lot of time for engagement and interaction.
Thank you, Richard. I think it was great to get so many important pointers from what you have already mentioned. I think three very critical things is ability to learn fast, and that is learning, right? And then you mentioned that there has to be ability to fail fast, and that is unlearn, and the ability to adapt first, and that is relearn. I think this continuous learning which you mentioned is very, very important pointers to the students. The other thing what I could gather is adapting swiftly. The pace of change is rapid, and as you mentioned, technology is forcing everybody to change. And this is not only technology industry or anything like that. In every industry, this pace of technology is making a lot of changes too fast, and the flexibility is the key to survival and success for future generation. So I would like to ask you, can you share a specific turning point or challenge you encountered on your path to success, and how you navigated through it? I think it will be extremely important for the student to get that first-hand information from you. Over to you, Richard.
So, Amita, while that question is interesting, so turning points are not very easy to. Sorry. Okay. I think I lost the connection in between. I hope I'm still audible. But see, my view on this whole question around turning points is turning points are areas which have two things, and it is the ability to take. Sorry, I'm getting some cross connection.
Yeah,
so
can everybody else please go on mute? Or if the organizer can mute everybody apart from Richard. Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, sorry. So okay, I think now we are okay. So coming back to the question on turning points, I think there are two things. One is the ability to take risks, because turning points is all about you stepping into the unknown. You do not know which way this will go, because you can only identify that it was a turning point for you when you look back. You can never identify that point when you are in it. The second, I think, is the ability to believe in yourself that you can succeed with that risk. So two things. One is the ability to take risk, and secondly is the belief in yourself are the two distinguishing factors when you take these decisions. And I go back to some points which are interesting. Not necessarily, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about my own personal areas, but I go back to the time when Infosys was founded. And let me give that as an example because that is probably more interesting. And if we look at some of the founders of our company, were people who are well settled in established companies, and they took a leap of faith to take on something which was unknown. Nobody knew that the IT revolution would transform the country in the future, but they believed that this was a risk worth taking, and they believed in their ability to sustain. And of course, that led to several of them becoming billionaires. But that was not the point. The point is, at that point in time, they didn't know it. So many times when I see people take shifts in career, like they would have studied accountancy, but they decided to go and do something else, or they were destined to be doctors, but they decide to invest in developing social enterprises. These are all turning points which you take with your belief in yourself and the ability to take risks. And I'm not saying everybody should do that, because not everybody coming across turning points would necessarily fit as turning points in their individual life. So your turning point could be very different from the turning point for your friend who's sitting next to you. So it's your and if that is not for you, it is not the value you can gain out of taking it. So the summary, though I have probably given a vague answer, is that when it comes to you, you should be ready to take that leap of faith, and don't be. The final point I was, don't worry about failure. Many times you take these leap of faiths, things don't work out the way you thought it would work out. But failure teaches you more than success ever will. So everybody who fails actually learns a lot and does better the next time they take that risk. So don't be scared of failure. And there might be some people in the audience, and I don't want to miss that point, is that there's nothing wrong in not taking risks. So there are many people who have done well in life by sticking to very steady routine career paths. So it's not necessary that everybody needs to go the same way and take risks. So you could probably also do well if you are of that kind of a background or a nature by doing very normal things. So it's not necessary that everybody should do the same thing.
Fantastic. I think that was very insightful, Richard. Thank you very much. Next question coming from Divyansh Khandelwal. He is asking Richard that balancing work and personal life can be challenging. How do you manage to maintain a healthy work-life balance while pursuing your career goals? I think this is also very important and relevant in post-COVID era, right?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, but my firm belief is, right, this is how you handle your own individual life, right? There is no such thing as a work-life balance which somebody can create for you. You have to create it for yourself. And both are important because you work because you want to have a good life, and you want to work is very much part of it. So it's not like, do not view it as a separate entity. Both work and life go together. So the people who wait for to finish their work or probably reach a level to be very successful and then they can enjoy life, such things don't exist. You have to look at both as a seamless thing. So to give you an example, I mean, you might, and this would largely depend on the kind of work you do, but all of us can plan our work and our life in a way that it makes sense. I'll give you my own example. For example, I like to go to office very early before anybody else comes. Many times I'm there at 7:30 or sometimes even earlier. But I have made it a rule that I leave much earlier, no matter what people say. But many people think that they want to spend the morning to themselves and then stay on late. So there is nothing wrong with either option. Or for example, how do we view as our weekends? Many people have particular rules, but many others are equally so many others are equally okay with bringing some element of work into it. The only aspect which is to me is a non-negotiable is health. And you cannot neglect your health at the account of your work, because if you do that, then you're just making excuses. So I've seen people, at least in the area I focus on, who end up with health issues very early in life because they thought after college they don't need to focus on. I know in college people are extremely healthy because people do spend a lot of time on keeping themselves healthy, but you develop these bad habits in the first few years of your work life. And my thought to all of you is that don't forget, in the first few years of your work life, it's very important not to forget the good habits you pick up in college in terms of working out or getting any kind of wellness aids and so on and so forth. So don't forget that. And the other aspect, of course, is your family. Uh, because family is really the reason why all of us work, and don't forget your family, because later on you may not get the opportunity to make use of it.
Fantastic. So there are many questions coming in, Richard, but let me go to the next one. What are the key qualities do you believe that contributed most to your success, and how the others can develop these, qualities? If you throw some light on that.
No, it's a good question, but probably I can't answer it because it's about myself. But let me try. Uh, I think the first one is the ability to get along with people. I have believed that everybody brings their own personal best. Not everybody is the same. Everybody contributes value. So the ability to work in a team. And one of the reason I'm answering it this way is this is what I look at when I even hire people. So the ability to work in a team, the ability to get along with others is primarily, I think, one of the biggest uh, areas of focus, which I would urge you to look at. The second one is don't ever forget the learning piece, the one I spoke about. Always use every opportunity to learn. My preferred way of learning is reading, but everybody has their own way of learning. So the second is don't forget always be interesting, always look at new things, discover things, be ready to learn. This is second piece. The third is be kind to people. It's very easy for me to say this, but I think a lot of us forget to be kind to each other. And I think no matter which, whether you are a very highly placed executive or you're at the starting or you're a student, you can be kind to people. And if you're kind to people, people pay it back to you. Not necessarily the same people, but somebody else. So the world will be a better place if you are kind to each other. So I think I would place these three things: the ability to get along with others, the focus on learning, and being kind is very important.
Yeah, I'm sure this will help our students to gather certain insights, which is going to help them in the future. It is always difficult to pinpoint in one particular thing. If people are successful, they have multiple traits, and they are mostly very good at situational management of stuff, right? In different situation requires different kind of skill sets. It's not that one skill will take you from point A to point B all the time. The next question comes from Akash Sajdev. Throughout your career, sir, you have likely interacted with various role models. Could you tell us about a mentor in your career and the lessons you learned from it?
Yeah, I think I've been very lucky. Thanks for that question. I think I've been very lucky. I worked with some extraordinary people. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But I think if I were to pick one person, I have met many people thanks to the ability to, because what the company gave me. Some of them celebrities, some of them not celebrities, but that's not the point. But if I have to pick one person, it probably will be Mr. Murthy. I think I have picked up the most important lessons from him. And these are the few ones. And they seem odd. The first one is be unreasonable when it comes to performance. So no matter how good you think your product of work is, he will demand more. And I try and do that the same, without, of course, becoming unkind to anyone. The idea is not to be unkind, but demand performance. So the first one is, and no matter what you do, whether you are writing a program or you're doing something very ordinary, demand performance. Second is no compromise on ethics and values. No matter how small the principle is, you cannot compromise on your ethics and values. And the third thing I learned from is that be fair. Don't do anything which is unfair to anyone. So while you build a great company, you can also be fair. So I think I admire him a lot. So that is the lesson I wanted to share. The second interesting personality, and since I'm the speaker, I probably have the liberty of giving one more. Is somebody who's close to Calcutta, and the reason, the first time I came to Calcutta, I met him. Is Mr. Y.C. Deveshwar, who was the former chairman of ITC. And I'm quoting him because you guys are in Cal, and I think this is an example also. And I know him because his son is a good friend of mine, and that's the reason why I know him very well. And he was a second mentor, whom I admire a lot, is that he taught that it's very important to pivot. ITC, when I met him, was a cigarette company. Almost all their revenues and everything was to do with cigarettes. And today, if I look at ITC, it's a very, very mixed company, right? It makes chips, it makes various things, it runs hotels, it does paperboards. So I think he gave them the idea that you can do many things, not necessarily focus on a core thing. And that is, you always have to think of the future. And from lesson I learned from him is always plan for the future. Don't stick to what makes you successful. Always be ready to take a risk and make changes. So two people. And I'll stop there because otherwise I'll go on and on, because there are many more interesting characters I've met. Some stories are funny, but probably, the idea is not to tell you too many stories.
Thanks, Richard. I think, these areas are, you can take a couple of hours to discuss all the interesting and
but I one of the most, I must mention it since there's a group of people who probably haven't heard of this person. So one of my interesting experiences was on an Indian Airlines flight. Indian Airlines doesn't exist anymore as an airline, and I had the privilege and honor of sitting next to Field Marshal Manekshaw. So one of the most interesting conversations I've had in my life. Of course, it was too short a journey for me to call him a mentor, but a very, very fascinating person.
Fantastic. So the next question comes from Rinat Tiwari, asking, embracing change is essential, especially in today's rapidly evolving work landscape. How do you approach and manage change, and how has it shaped your career path?
No, that's a very interesting question. Change is something which will happen whether we embrace it or not. The idea is to ride the change and not be swept away by the change. So those of you who are familiar with the sea, and I want to give this example. Not that I thought of this before, but if anybody has ventured into the sea or the ocean and tried to meet the waves, if you do it well, you can ride the wave. So the wave allows you to swim along with it. But if you fight the wave, you end up spending a lot of energy. So the change is the same thing. If you try to ride the change, you benefit from it. If you try to fight the change, you end up spending a lot of energy. The biggest thing about change is to see the large trends, not get worried about the small trends. See the large trends in which your whatever you choose to do, whatever profession you choose to do is going to go. And everybody is in a profession should have the vision of what is going to happen in this profession a few years down the line. So the right question to ask is, if, for example, if I am a nurse, what are the changes which are going to happen 10 years down the line? You may not have the answer to it, but always have the question. It's important to have the question. You may not get the answer because the answer might have to come from other people. The answer might not be there today. But never forget to ask your question. What is going to change 10 years down the line? How are things going to be different? You might not get it right, but it's very important to have this question. And when you have that question, your mind is always thinking that things will change and it will not be what it was today. And that is the first step to preparing, because when you know and when you think what is going to happen, you can prepare for it. You can set your expectation for it. You can get ready to face it. So that's the first principle. Second is don't get too tied to the present, because the present will not exist in the future. So the another thing to believe in life is that don't get too tied to the present. Always be thinking of the future. So these are 2 points I leave you with.
Thank you, Richard. The next question coming from Rhythm Bait, asking, can you shed light on the role of continuous self-improvement in your career journey? What practices or strategies have you used to constantly enhance your skills and knowledge? I think this is also linked with what you said in your opening comment, Richard, that in today's rapidly changing world, how do you continuously adapt your strategies to stay relevant and successful? That's the question the student is asking.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think I'm going to give a very odd answer. The idea to improve yourself is to surround yourself with a few people whom you trust, who can give you very free criticism of what you do. So, for example, if you're presenting, you should have few people in the audience who can tell you what you did wrong. If you are recording a video, you should have somebody you trust who isn't scared of telling you where you made a mistake. Of course, not only should the person not be scared, secondly, you as a person should be receptive to take feedback. That's the only way you can improve yourself. Like, for example, if you are making a product, like if I was inventing a phone, it's very easy for me to continuously improve because I have the old model in front of me. So think of yourself as a phone and say, how will you improve it? You cannot improve it if you deny that the product can be improved. So you are also a product and you can be improved. So have somebody who will not be scared of telling you that these are things which you can fix. And I'm not saying things which are wrong, because it's not necessarily that something should be wrong, but every one of us can improve. And the idea is to be open to receiving that feedback and make a conscious effort out of it. I'll give you an example, and probably makes more sense to you, because I had a person in my team, and I worked with him now close to 20 years, and he was always not good at presenting. And one of the things he used to make me do, and even when I didn't have time, he would make me sit at the end of the room and watch what he did. And at the end of every session, I had to give him feedback. So these are some of the simple things you can do to improve yourself, and you'll get there. It's that's the be open to change and have people who are not scared to tell you. It is more important as you grow in your career. As you grow in your career, nobody will tell you you're wrong, because we, especially in India, we have, and not only in India, in other countries also, we have this nice tendency that never go and tell the boss what is wrong with them, because it's dangerous. So nobody will tell you. So you always need to have people who will go and tell you what is wrong with you. In college, that's not a problem, because your teachers and your faculty are more than happy to tell you what is wrong with you, and you also get your marks. But after that, you don't get it, right? So then you need to create a system which gives you this feedback.
Yeah. I think a very important message which is coming out of what you're saying, Richard, is one need to stay grounded as well, right?
Oh, yeah. Because I think the best people I've met have a great self-awareness. And I know many of the students would be good at sports. Sports people are probably the greatest examples of being self-aware. Corporate world is not a great example. Academics is not a great example, but sports is a great example. Because one of the people I met, and since that earlier question was there, was Rahul Dravid. And I was asking him, how did you know that this is the time to retire? Because you are a great player, and you've scored centuries and you've scored more runs than many of us will even dream of. He said, look, at some point in time, my eye and my hand was not coordinating. And I could have still pretended to play, and I would have scored runs also, because I was still better than most people. But I knew this is the time to call it a day. So it's so sports is a good example of how to be self-aware.
Absolutely. I think it's crucial to have a foundation of values about yourself, your beliefs, and the practices that can keep you centered and create that North Star. And everything you do, you try to, weight it against the North Star. That are you going in the right direction or not? And be aware that taking feedback is always good. I have seen corporate leaders, they're a little afraid of taking feedback. I think it's important. Next question from Krishna Agarwal. Building a personal brand is vital for career success. What advice do you have for individuals looking to establish a strong personal brand in their industry?
There are two parts to my answer. The first is do your job correctly and your personal brand gets built on its own. You don't need to really, like the things I spoke about, in terms of working hard, doing the right thing, being kind to people, etc. Those are the normal things which people build their personal brand. Not doing wrong things is very important as part of the brand, and that gets built as you grow. There is no shortcut to this. That's the hard approach. The second part to my answer is that do not forget the networking ability and the word of mouth which happens. So use opportunities to share your knowledge with others. Use the opportunity to write in either an industry magazine or a journal. Use the opportunity to present a point of view. You could, nowadays there is enough technology, you could even make videos and upload them. So this is the second conscious part. The first part will happen over a period of time because there are no shortcuts. The second part accelerates it. So you might be an extremely well-known person within your company, but how do you get known outside your company is by doing the part B of it. So you need to do both part A and part B. Some people don't do part B and only focus on part A. They get a great reputation and a personal brand within their company. Nothing wrong with it. They remain in those companies for a long period of time, and it's a great way to operate. There are also some funny people who do only part B and do not do part A. Those are not very interesting people because that brand is all gas. It doesn't sustain. So the ideal situation, do part A and part B. But if you can't do both, then at least do part A and never do only part B. That doesn't make sense.
Okay, makes sense. The next question comes from Akash Gupta, saying that, sir, one of the points you discussed was about taking calculated risk. Could you share an instance where you took a calculated risk that paid off and what you learned from that experience? A very good question.
Yeah, I'll share. I mean, though I don't really like talking about my personal story, I'll tell you about the time, and this was in 2000, probably before most of the students on the call were born. Is that I was doing fine in a company. I was handling sales for a very large company in Bombay. And then I was approached by Infosys to check if I was interested in doing HR in a very different location and not in a company which was as big as the company I was working in. And first of all, I was changing my profession. I was moving from sales into HR, and I had absolutely no knowledge of HR at that point in time. So that was risk number one. Second is I was leaving an established company in a large city and going to a company which is not, I mean, I'm not saying it was not known, it was known, but it is not as big. And in an area which I was not familiar with. And I took it and it worked for me. May not have worked also because there were others at the same point who were not as lucky. So this is from my own personal experience. It worked. Doesn't necessarily mean it will work all the time. But I'm not advising this as a strategy to copy because each of you have to develop your own personal risk situations. I could give you a very simple risk, right? For example, which makes probably more sense from your perspective. Like, for example, after undergrad, many of you might want to study more. Okay, and you might want to do, for example, let's say you want to do an MBA. Now, if you are from Calcutta, the safe strategy for you is to go and do an MBA in IIM Calcutta. That is the safe route. Okay, IIM Calcutta is an excellent college. I'm sure most of you are bright enough to get in, and you will do well. The risk part is going and doing your MBA in some other city, which is probably 2,000 kilometers away from your hometown. So that is a risk which I can give you. It will change your life because you are going away from all familiar surroundings and going into the unknown. So this is a risk which probably is more familiar than the example I gave earlier.
Okay.
So
I think
we'll be taking one last question after this.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I ask that question, I think I was trying to reflect on what Richard was saying so far. One thing we all know, that there is nothing like a mantra which fits, one size fits all solution kind of a thing, right? Every individual might find a mantra or philosophy that speaks more closely to your personal journey. I think, however, the principles highlighted here can serve as a foundational guide in navigating an unpredictable future at times. And when you get into the industry, you will reflect on what Richard is talking about, and then perhaps you'll be able to find some connection here and there. So one last question. After that, I'll have to hand it over to Somadip, perhaps. That I think Rishita Das asking this question, that what is one key piece of advice you would give, Richard, to aspiring professionals who want to navigate their career journey successfully and reach to the top?
This is very frightening, okay, because I'm not a person who gives advice. So if I were to leave you with one piece, I truly believe in it, is that you should believe in yourself. No matter what self-doubt you have, no matter what your teachers say, what your parents say, believe in yourself. Because in this world, we are all alone. I mean, we have a lot of friends, we have a lot of relatives, but we are alone. So if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. Each of you is good. Each of you has unique talents. Each of you has a unique ability to make things work. You might, at some point in time, doubt yourself. You might run into difficulties, but never lose belief in yourself, because you are good. And no matter what happens, if you believe in yourself, rest of the things will work out, because the world is full of opportunities. There are things you can do. People will help you, but don't lose the belief in yourself. That will work. So if that is one piece I want to leave you with, believe in yourself.
Excellent. And many great pointers, Richard, you gave, and I learned a lot from you. I'm sure the students.
Thank you. You're very kind. I mean, thank you.
A couple of things which I learned, among many, one is stay grounded, remain curious, adapt swiftly, act with purpose, and believe in yourself. And these are the great learning from somebody of your stature with such a illustrious, career. So with that, Richard, I would like to thank you from my side.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you,
engaging and interesting conversation. And I'd like to hand it over to the organizers.
Thank you. A very good morning to Father Principal, Father Vice Principal, members of the advisory committee, all the dignitaries present here, respected professors, faculty members, participants, and all the students of St. Xavier's College Autonomous, Kolkata. As we conclude this session, I would like to thank our esteemed speaker, Mr. Lobo, for providing such an insightful session to enrich the young minds. Engaging with a man with thoughts and personality like yours is indeed a pleasure. We sincerely appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today for such an inspirational session. Sir, your knowledge will be both beneficial and motivating to the audience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite Mr. Rajashik Sen of the Xavier's Management Society to deliver the vote of thanks.
Yes, it was indeed a very good session that we have just counted, sir. A very good morning, first of all, to Father Principal, Father Vice Principal, and our esteemed speaker for the day, that is Mr. Richard Lobo, members of advisory committee, respected professors, faculty members that are present in this meeting. And lastly, I think all the students and the XMS members that are there who are working, I think, past over 1 week, we are finding them in the college from morning to evening. So thank you to all of them. As we come to the end of this session, I would like to convey my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Richard Lobo our esteemed speaker, for motivating our students with his wise words, which were truly inspirational in every aspect. This event would not be possible without the continuous guidance and support of our Father Principal, Father Vice Principal, and our Dean Sir, Professor Sogar Banerjee. Apart from that, Professor Sukanya Sarkar, Deputy President, Xavier's Management Society. I would also like to express my gratitude to each and every society members who took up the challenge of hosting the event in this particular hybrid mode and providing a unique experience to the participants and attendees. To conclude, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone present, and I hope all of you had an experience of lifetime and an incredible session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those kind words. I would once again like to thank Mr. Lobo for gracing us today with his presence. We are eternally grateful to have heard your thoughts on leadership. With this, we've reached the end of today's session. Thank you, sir. All students, please stay back for a short announcement. Attendance forms for BMS students and credit forms for all non-BMS students have been rolled out in the chat box. All the students are requested to fill out their respective forms and it will be closed in 15 minutes. Thank you.